Maybe Abhay can check your PPT and start.
I'll start in a minute. Okay. So, in fact, last time we had, introduced the concepts of migration and diaspora. And in Unit 2, we introduced the concept of transnationalism and globalization. In fact, these two terms will be repetitively used in multiple units and becomes, in terms of one of the key concepts when we talk about diasporas. Just to do a quick recap, because it's always good to do a tie back with the earlier units. Migration is permanent, semi-permanent change of residence, can be caused by various factors, which could be economic opportunity, lifestyle. Better is a very subjective word. Something which might be better for me may not be better for you. So better is not very objectively defined. So climate change, spread of epidemics. So for example, if you have been watching the news, there are major California bushfires which are happening, which are getting people to move. That movement happens, a lot of people will migrate out of California and so on and so forth. According to Castles, migration is a part of the process of transformation. Now, whenever migration happens, it transforms social structures, institutions, entire global political economy, because people are moving. Then, in terms of theories of international migration by various social scientists like sociologists, so it's an interdisciplinary subject which can be explained by various subject experts, by demographers, economists, geographers, developing and applying their own tools. There are various theories of international migration, the neoclassical theory, new economic theory. This is a tie back that I'm doing to the unit one that we did last Saturday. Segmented labor market theory, historical structure theory, world system theory, social capital, and human agency theory. Uh, then the term diaspora. How did this term come about? So, if you look at the dictionary meaning, it is derived from the ancient Greek verb which means I scatter, I spread about, in composed of dia through across and I so scatter. So, and when this term was brought in with human movement, the term diaspora came in. In fact, the Jewish experience remained the paradigm for a very long time. In fact, the whole diaspora studies started with the Jewish experience. Then, of course, the African and the Armenian experience came in. But today, and in the earliest thing, it was in a shade of victimization and negativity. Today, the term diaspora is radically reordered, growing transnationalism. A lot of people are moving, economic engagement and formal citizenship practices that have evolved. Also, to understand the fact that the nation and the nation state is a very modern concept. People have always historically been moving. In fact, when the African slave trade have happened, more often than not, the Africans who were traded and moved to North America didn't even know which country they came from. Saffron's main characteristics of diaspora, he had six characteristics. Ancestors have been dispersed from an original center, retain a collective memory or vision, believe they are not and perhaps can never be fully accepted in host societies. So these characteristics were the start of diaspora studies. Subsequently, Cohen added more. So these are the six one. Ancestral home is idealized. They believe all members of the diaspora should be committed to the maintenance of restaurants. So if you read it, it's more like the Jewish experience. They continue in various ways to relate to the homeland and their ethno-communal communal consciousness. Saffron's six characteristics, Cohen added four more. Should also include scattering groups with aggressive or voluntary purpose, a strong connection with the past, should be definitely positive rather than negative. People of diaspora have a common identity with co-ethnic members. So Cohen added more to it. Then Cohen identified five types of diaspora: victim, refugee, imperial, colonial. Again, these are not watertight compartments. Trade, business, professionals, cultural hybrid. There were a lot of Jews in trade, but under trade and business, Lebanese, Chinese, some Indian communities have been put. So, defining diaspora that comes out with an ideal type is often confronted with the problem of applicability. Diasporas are not homogeneous terms, so it's unfair to use the term Indian diaspora, for example, in a very homogeneous term. Every act of migration does not necessarily lead to diaspora formation. So diaspora formations happens for some particular reason, and hence we come to unit 2, which is transnationalism and globalization. So let's look at the objective. As I keep repeating, most of the content has been taken out of the self-learning module or SLM. I do add a lot of examples. In fact, now I've also started adding academic articles in terms of their screenshots where you can go and read them up. I would also give you examples of media. Media like films and books become a great source of understanding things, because remember, when films are made or authors write books, they write it from some context or their lived experience. Familiar with the concept of globalization, transnationalism, application and impact, diverse relation between the two terms. So let's look at this particular unit. Impacts every aspects of global system. Transnationalization, remember it, the nation state is a very new concept. So every time you are moving and you are having connections, inevitably they were always happening, but now the term has a term has been given and a definition has been given. Closely related terms which are often used as synonym have several points of divergence. So let's look at what is transcending the strict disciplines of national boundaries. So transnationalism has everything to do with national boundaries. Globalization implies development of an increasingly integrated global order. And that's why it becomes very interesting today with globalization. Every aspect of a country, any particular country, affects everybody else in the world. Both the processes, however, espouse free flow of capital, ideas, and people and complement each other. Now, the interesting part is historically, if you see, there was always a free flow of people, of movement of people, of ideas. Trade used to happen. There were Arab traders, there were Chinese traders. We have in history we have read about travelers from various parts of the world. They have written about ancient civilization. So, but there were no nation states. So the concept of nationalism, transnationalism, and nationalism are pretty new concepts. So let's start with an example. Recently or some time back, there was this moi moi meme which became very popular in the Indian social media circles. So the meme came out. It's an internet meme, originated in 2023, and it came from a Serbian song by singer writer Teja Dora, where you can open another window and go on YouTube and you can check this out. This particular Serbian song. The song lyrics contains "Moje More" in Serbian, which means "my nightmares." And there were a lot of memes and reels and YouTube shorts which were created on Moi Moi. It was actually not Moi Moi, but Moje More, which is a Serbian word. And it became popular in India, which is a very clear concept of globalization, how things travel from one part of the world to another part of the world. So transnationalism as an idea was initiated by American scholar like Landau Vaughan during and after World War One. So we're talking about the earlier 20th century. Sorry. He supported the idea of American cosmopolitanism rather than assimilation. The way America functions, America is known as a culture of the melting pot where everybody they want everybody to assimilate their culture in India. India, on the other hand, is more in terms of a cosmopolitan culture. India has always been, in terms of everybody who traveled to India, could maintain their own culture. So if you see various people who came to India, various cultures which came to India have grown and and still been a part of it, influenced other cultures in India. Whereas America, they want to be part of the melting pot and assimilation. It gave rise to a debate related to transnational connection, who carried their cultures at the time of migration. So it's like this. Remember the fact that when you are migrating, and as a human being, you have a particular culture, a way of operation, and you go into an alien culture. The only comfort that you get is out of your own culture, which is in terms of language, which is in terms of religion, which is in terms of food. Now, how difficult or how insecure you would be when you are going outside in a foreign culture where the language is different, the religion is different, the food habits are different. And that's where the people came together and found comfort in their culture. They carry their culture, shaping several postmodern ideas like cosmopolitan. And so the idea of multiculturalism came from there, because once you allow people to be secure with themselves, they will be more likely going to contribute in a host nation's economy and other aspects of host nation. Whereas if you try and push people into an insecure space of a foreign culture, they would be trying to make sense and not being, be able to contribute in the host society. In the present, it has become fashionable and widely used term referring to economic and international organization, terrorism, and diaspora. So this term is very freely used. A lot of times, it's become a fancy term to use. Translation is closely linked to forces of globalization. Hang on, there is a comment. Okay, just a sec. So the growth of transnationalism closely linked to globalization, obviously, because for a simple reason that once travel becomes easy, you can move back and forth. The connections to homeland and hostland becomes easy. The concepts of transnationalism comes into the picture. Affordable transportation, demographic imbalances created by declining population in some part. Now, again, the fact is we need to understand historically people have always been moving, and when people are at a particular place, they form a particular identity and they form connections with the local community, and when they move, more often than not, that connections back home with their identity and local community do not get severed. Now with modern media, you are able to have real time connections back, are maintained and sustained through a web of social networks which circulates knowledge, skills, and intelligence. Earlier, when the indentured labor, for examples, were taken to distant places, to communicate back home was an impossible task. To come back home was an impossible task. Today, before a person migrates, that person is able to see through Google Maps or through YouTube where he or she is going, what is the situation, what are the restaurants, what is the food habits, what's the culture, what's the outlet. And once that person moves out there, that person is easily able to connect back to the local communities, to his or her identity, to his or her family, extended family, kinship, etc. Increased transnational connections between society cultures have impacted economic, social, and political fields across nations. Helps in understanding different global issues, starting from politics, criminal activities, social, economics to culture. So today, with globalization and transnationalism, anything which happens nationally impacts diasporas, because quickly those informations are shared across. Remember, a human being is a social animal. The connections, the kinships, the ethnic ties, everything remains even if a person migrates. So there is always this debate about all those people who have migrated abroad. Why are they interested about the affairs in India? They always would be because there's a transnational connection. According to Lima, it is a phenomena only made possible by advances in transportation and communication technology, which is globalization. Over the past 2 decades, that were unavailable to previous generation of migration, and that is why the whole concept of diaspora has turned on its head. So the memory of homeland is no longer a memory; it is coming out in terms of media, and that memory is constantly shaped and reshaped. So, in the transnational discourse, there is translation from above and transnationalism from below. From above, so for example, look at the fact there is a European Union. Now, European Union is a supranational political and economic body. The European Union consists of individual states. So, a person from France would be a French national, but at the same time is a part of the European Union. And any person who gets a Schengen visa can travel to any of the countries in the European Union, which involves transnational migration and migrant expansion, forging and sustaining familial, economic, cultural, and political ties and identities that cross national boundaries. So, a French and a German were always at loggerheads in terms of the world wars, but today form a part of a European Union. Transnationalism from above. Sorry. Transnationalism affects diverse area of international governance, interstate policy, foreign policy, social values, cultural constructs, national and international security, international organization. Apadurai puts transnationalism in terms of translocality. Translocality presents the idea that the nation state has been displaced. So a lot of times this feeling is that today, in fact, the nation state has been displaced, which actually is not the case, as the exclusive mediator. So now nation state is one of the mediators which happens. There are many other mediators which happens. Earlier, it was just the nation state which was the mediator, but with transnationalism, there are many more mediators which are happening between disparate political communities. So I was reading about how in the state of Manipur, where there is a conflict going on between two ethnic, societies or two ethnic communities, the various communities are using Starlink to be able to overcome the internet ban. So think about it. Today, when the state always was the exclusive, typically interlocutor in terms of citizens' affairs. Today, a non-state private organization like X is able to affect communities within national boundaries. Despite transnational practices, state continue to remain the focal point, one that needs to understand, because look at the fact that anytime you need to migrate, you need to have a visa which is given by the state. You need to have a passport which is given by a state. So the state becomes still a very important focal point, but they are no more the only actors. Now there are multiple actors. Uh, Organization like Apple or Facebook. I was reading in 2023, the GDP of Apple was almost equivalent to the GDP of UK or France or India or so many countries. They had a GDP of 2.23 trillion. So it was one giant organization, which was a private organization, and Apple today affects every country in terms of its products. Transnational connectivity operation through modern technology and cyberspace has made transnational spaces permeate to the local level. What I typically gave you the example of Manipur, where the community is able to use a Starlink facility given by X company, which is a US based company, to use internet. In fact, they say that transnational connections strengthen rather than erase local identifications and systems. Studies have found that better immigrant is integrated educational and professionally, the more likely he's. So more often than not, it is like that. Once it's like this. Once a individual uh, is uh, is taken care of in terms of food, clothing, and shelter, the more likely the person will engage in political activities in a country. Similarly, if an immigrant is integrated educationally and professionally, that means his basic needs are taken care of, he or she is more likely engage in transnational activity. And you will see that a lot of Indians who are NRIs, non-resident Indians, or are citizens of other countries of a particular socioeconomic background, are very much interested in the politics that is happening in India, because they are much more integrated educationally and professionally. So, types of transnationalism: social anthropologists treat transnationalism as a social phenomena, economists treat it as an economic phenomena, political scientists as a political phenomena. As I said, all these terms are interdisciplinary. Ports and Bash and Sasson have acknowledged that a global perspective must include social, cultural, and political dimension of migrant experience, because a human being is a very unique, animal. He or she has multiple experiences, which could be in the realm of social, it could be in the realm of cultural and political, and a lot of times, a lot of people miss out on the political front. Anderson spoke about transnational political conscious. In fact, the Pravasi Bharat Divas is happening currently, or is going to happen, and a lot of people who are of Indian origin are taking very active interest in Indian politics, in Indian policy making, in the business of India, and so on and so forth. That total today human mobility cannot be viewed as a rupture between here and there, especially because of enhanced connectivities, because of internet, social media, because of faster mobility. There is no rupture. It's almost like people just pack up and go and stay outside a nation and are still a part of the national conscience. Social relations continue over spaces. Proponents of global capitalism believe transnationalism is happening from above and has increased relevance for the growth of capitalist globalization. Opponents believe in breaking national boundaries to unite the workers. So, at one side, you will look at the fact that capitalism is spreading across. Capitalists use transnationalism as a way to enhance capital accumulation. But on the other hand, if you see, today, there is this national boundaries are not preventing people from diverse background to connect. Workers, political movements, to clandestine and criminal networks, and terrorism as an example for wider forms of transnationalism. So you will, all these things are happening because of higher connectivity, because of internet, and so on and so forth. So let's look at globalization. Webster defines globalization as development and increasingly integrated global economy, marks especially. Now, inevitably, again, we need to understand economy is directly linked to culture, it is linked to social institutions or other institutions, it's also linked to politics, a free trade, free flow of capital, tapping of cheaper foreign labor. In fact, in MDI 007, you will see how globalization is changing the way labor is viewed. In MDI 008, you will see how globalization is affecting production processes. Everything is turning on its head, how things are changing. I was just reading an hour back about how this particular company is no longer going to employ engineers as coders, because of artificial intelligence, the coding can be done automatically. So in fact, every profession today is under threat, and it has to find different ways of surviving or looking, because of these forces of globalization impacts the global subordinate. Hello. Okay, sorry, one of the mics got unmuted. Globalization implies that the global subordinates the local and the national. So it is like it's almost like the global subordinates the local and the national. The most widely used definition of globalization is that of Held and McGrew as the widening, intensifying, speeding up, and growing impact of worldwide interconnectedness. So now there is a worldwide interconnectedness because of transportation, communication, how we do things, how things have changed. Has been a buzzword for more than 3 decades. No consensus on when the process of globalization started. Many scholars state globalization started after 1990, but if you look at the fact, 1500 onwards, the world trade was moving. When colonization happened, and the various European countries were moving, there was a mass trade which had started. Some scholars define it as after 1990. But in history, there are 3 points where we can say process started. Integration of Asia around 1000 AD or earlier, around 1500 AD when the European maritime adventurers started, and thirdly, the Industrial Revolution of everything. In fact, the Industrial Revolution of 1800 got into mass production of goods. Now, once the mass production of goods happened, it had to be sold, because the whole process of capitalism or whole concept of capitalism is on selling goods. So when it had to be sold, markets had to be found or markets had to be developed. And hence, for developing markets, increased mobility, increased better transportation happened. And to facilitate this movement, a better communication was required. So everything happened parallelly. Things did not happen in a linear fashion. According to Gunter Frank, there was a single global world economy with the worldwide division of labor and multilateral trade from 1500 onwards. While Bentley argues that even before 1500, trade network reached almost all. Arab traders were there. In fact, when Muhammad bin Qasim attacked Sindh, it was not to come to India. it was because the Arab trade routes were under threat from the tribes in Sindh, and they were affecting the trade. Trade was always a very important part of the global economy. Large volumes of commerce encourage specialization of agriculture and industrial production. So all these things was happening, and inevitably when you look at history, you will figure out that whatever is happening today is an extension of history. Another scholar who believed globalization of being an old phenomena was Wallerstein. It was in the 16th century they came up to the European world economy based upon a capitalist model of production. The time when industrialization, it was pre-industrialization. Several parts of the world only became incorporated into the world economy around between 1715 and 1850, when colonization was at its peak, as the trade in luxury goods which had linked this region to the coast was replaced by trade in bulk goods. So, and remember, colonization led to an industrial revolution because there was imports of cheap raw materials, of capital, which the colonization was taking from the colonies, etc. Friedman divides the history of globalization into three periods: globalization 1, 1490 to 1800. Again, these are various scholars who have looked at a particular perspective. Globalization 2, which dates from 1800 to 2000, and 3 dates from 2000 to present. Inevitably, each scholar would come out with its own point of view. So we again, these are perspectives we cannot with. If we look at history, we looked at the fact that how do you define when trade was happening all the time. So theories of globalization, three types of positions on globalization. There is the hyper globalist, there are the skeptics, and there are the transformalists. Hyperglobalists are those who are strong supporters of globalization. So there are all these commentators and scholars who uh, put this viewpoint that it is globalization which is leading to an enhanced quality of life for human beings today. A lot of information can come to us because of globalization. They find globalization as a historic set of economic, cultural, and political changes. In fact, the Arab Spring was caused by globalization because all these cultures and information came inside, that have happened due to technological changes and intensities after 1980s. And these also would be the people who would be extremely technology deterministic, which would feel that it's technology which is changing the world. They believe that major impact has been made by the advancement of information and communication due to develop. These are technology determinists. Understand one thing, that technology is not the only way things go around. More often than not, technology follows a particular need of the society. The hyper-globalists believe that nation states have become less important and the present situation is of a borderless world. And we also know that that is also not accurate a description. But that is how the hyper-globalist viewpoint is. Then there are the skeptics. Globalization is a daydream. Concept of integrated world economy doesn't exist. Scholars like Hurst and Thompson believe that a still lot of trade happens inside the country, and cross-border trade is not a new phenomena. Idea of globalization has been advocated by many for the advancement of market-oriented economic aims. So there are this is another point of view, that it was always there. These buzzwords have been brought by advancement of market-oriented economic aims. Then there are the transformationalists, believe that major changes have surely taken place at the global level, but at the same time, the old and established traditional features have not withered away. This view is the most acceptable one for globalization. It is neither overhyped nor rejects it. So if you look at it again, everything which is new comes out of the old. Nothing just gets created. It's all an evolutionary process, like the human beings or Sorry, my one of the keys is misbehaving. I'll start again.
No issue, sir.
Okay. Gurpreet, Aisha, you can you hear me out?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, now no voice.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now.
Gurpreet, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can.
Uh, oh, hang on. I can't hear you. I can't. I can't hear. I don't know why. Uh, Hang on. I
You are audible, please.
is not same speaker headphone real audio. Just a sec. Hello. Yeah. Now you can. I think now you can. I can hear myself. Okay, so there is this various traditions by which you can hear. The realists believe globalization is a creation of a dominant state for the underdeveloped or developing states to further their dominance. States have become more dominant with an increase in surveillance and regulation. So, in fact, when you read this, a lot of times you will agree to what is said in terms of realism. Liberals hold a positive view of globalization. Economic globalization has led to maximum utilization of resources. So, for example, one of the reasons why you can get good from all across the world in India is today is because of globalization. Earlier, when Indians need to buy certain products, they would typically travel to the Gulf states, to Dubai, and get things. Today, everything is available. Everything in produced in India is available everywhere else. Chinese goods are available everywhere else, all because of globalization. Believe that Liberals believe that this has brought political, social, and cultural benefits of different ideas. Again, as I said, liberals would be the ones who would say that Arab Spring was caused by forces of globalization, changes in society, liberal democracy, more freedom and progress of humankind. Then there are the critical theorists, which adopt an opposition. Critical theorists which always adopt an oppositional behavior towards globalization, has created a hierarchical order with huge disparity between rich and poor. Essence of globalization is triumph of global capitalist order. Now, understand the truth may be between various of these, believers or the various theories. Truth may lie somewhere in between all of them, but all of these guys have a viewpoint, also believe world has faced a significant change, and this shift has reduced the power of states. The whole process to remove hindrances from for capitalism. So the critical theories are very much oriented towards the fact that it's all a capitalist design. to capture the world order. Then there are the feminists who think link globalization to increase gender inequalities. So there is a set of gender equalities, and feminists link it to globalization. Associate with the movement from underdeveloped regions to developed regions for work. This is known as feminization of migration. In fact, hi. In fact,
Hello.
yeah, Aisha.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can hear me now. Yes, sir. So I wanted to ask: are there also feminist theories which state that globalization leads to increasing gender equality instead of inequality?
Sorry.
I'm saying that are there also feminist theories which state that globalization leads to increased gender
Gender.
equality rather than inequality?
Uh, so globalization will lead. So there are two ways to it. Now, one way could gender inequality. Now, how inequality is the fact is because of globalization and the push towards cheaper labor, more often than not, and this you will study in MDI 007 and 008, where we are studying labor and production processes. Now, what typically happens is a lot of work has gone towards contract work, or towards cheaper labor. Now, which labor is able to provide cheap labor? It's the women and children. So all these sweatshops in various countries which produce cheaper goods for these big Western brands actually, degrade the women. So there is an increased inequality, gender inequality. Aisha?
Yes, sir. I'm just curious if there are any theories which state the opposite, that
So
uh,
inevitably,
globalization.
the liberals would also say the fact that globalization, and in fact this is one of the argument which is pushed forward, that globalization allows, for example, work to move from developed into developing countries, which provides a means of employment for people in the developing countries. So if you see, more often than not, you will have this news item that so much MOUs were signed and so much investment will come into India. Now, more often, and then once this investment comes, so many jobs will be created. Now, when the jobs will be created, who are these jobs going to be created equally for men and women? So if you
Most
look,
likely.
if you look at this, first preference will be given to men. When you say unemployment, you would look at the men who are unemployed. We are forgetting the fact that women are also today educated, have a particular skill, but their employment is not taken. And that also is because, this particular thing is said, when we look at Western media, one of the theories which was talking about, let's say, the US elections, is that the US is still not one of the debates which was happening is the US ready to vote for a woman president? And a lot of commentators were saying that US is still not ready to vote for a woman president. Now look at the fact, a 200-year-old democracy still has not had a women president, whereas India has had a women prime minister. And now these media is traveling across the world to denote a particular message scheme or a narrative bit. So globalization actually leads to increasing gender inequalities. Aisha?
Yes, sir. Understand.
And at the same time, it is also leading to feminization of migration. So multiple strands are happening at the same time. Aisha?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So three main types of globalization. One is economic globalization. National economies, for a large extent or small, have been absorbed into the world economy. So today, anything impacts Say, for example, one stock exchange goes down, the rest of the stock exchanges also go down. Development of transnational economic structure was the main feature of imperialism. Present phenomena of globalization is so complex that the world has got economically intertwined in a single entity. So when the meltdown in the U.S. Stock market happened in 2008, when companies like Lehman Brothers went down, the whole world went through a depression. In that we had an economist as a prime minister, Manmohan Singh, who was able to tide, especially the Indian economy during that meltdown. The major force behind increments in the global interconnectedness is international trade. Led to transnational mode of production, movement of labor, and the creation of a global financial system. You can see how easy it is to move money today across the world. So you can remit money back home, you can send money out. It's one of the consequences of globalization. Transnational mode of production, movement of labor, and the creation of a global financial system. Then there is cultural globalization linked to economic globalization. Advancements in information and communication technology, information, commodity, or image produced anywhere gets into the global level, helps in diffusing the cultural differences. So now today there is, earlier there used to be this larger culture which was dominated by the American way of life. But today, as I had shown you the example of the Moi Moi meme, it's a Serbian, culture which has got diffused into the Indian, psyche as a meme. Today, you are picking up from, cultural symbolism from Japan or from China or from the Arab world or from the US, and it's a circular movement. It can create homogenization of culture and also polarize the diversity, but it can also change individual cultures or get influenced by individual cultures. Associated with worldwide spread of consumerism and rise of individualism, serving the interest of economic and politically dominant ones, homogenization taken in bulldozing local, regional, and national diversity, and consumerism is condemning for destroying values and happiness. At the same time, it can also lead to spread of local international. So, for example, a local culinary channel from Dhaka can become a worldwide success in terms of local cuisines of Dhaka. Then there is the political globalization. Economic globalization needs a political backup. When states were first once master, now it's the markets which are, as I gave you the example, today Apple has in 2023 had a turnover of GDP of 2.23 trillion, which was approximately around the GDP of UK or the GDP of France or the GDP of India. Political globalization has significantly affected the power and significance of the state. So look at the power which companies like X or Facebook or Apple commands or Google commands. It both increases chances for the state as well as it reduces it also. So there are multiple ways one looks at it. Seen as promoting privatization, rolling back on welfare provisions and various other policies, are designing their policies to attract more and more foreign direct investment. Wages are being kept low, which we'll see in MDI 007 in terms of how it is affecting labor and the production process. Transnational corporations are acquiring more importance and influence in the state. So today, Facebook has much more importance or power than a lot of states in the world, nation states. Then there is a sovereignty crisis. Increasing technology, many and significant breakthroughs has happened since World War II, resulting in decrease in communication time, distance, and cost. Defines the system, cultural polarities, abrupt debate. So, what happened in the Arab world or in the Middle East, or what is happening today vis-a-vis, let's say, the US in terms of politics, or in terms of North America, in terms of the trade war, or what is happening in Asia. This movements is happening. The nation state is under siege, and in fact all nation states are feeling under siege because of movements of this information and culture. Global orders economic fabric is moving away from primary international transaction between nation and governments toward transnational activities among businesses. Why are states so scared of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency? Because it diminishes the state power. Now individuals can transact with other individuals, or state actors or non-state actors can bypass the traditional economic institutions. The rise of neoliberalism's dominant rhetoric. Globalization places more importance on global vis-a-vis the national or the local, and might lead to delocalization, denationalization, and acculturalization. So today, for example, Indians have brought property in various European nations. There are people who own businesses in India but are staying outside. Transnationalism, on the other hand, instead of subordinating the local and the national, transnationalizes them, thus in a way strengthens them. So today, a guy sitting in America, an Indian person, a person of Indian origin sitting in America, could actually be influencing Indian politics or giving donations, though legally it is not allowed, but can route through the family route, can take interest, can set up business, can set up charitable organization, and he or she is very much concerned with how things are moving. Today, the front runner in Canadian, ruling party is a lady by the name of Anita Anand, whose parents are from India. She was born in Canada. She's a practicing Hindu. So obviously there would be connections. The parents would have connections back home in India. Transnationalism has challenged homogenization, has led to repositioning of states. Connectivity encourages heterogeneity, discourages homogeneity. So at one point, it appears to be homogeneous, but at another point, you will see there is a heterogeneity which comes in. Because remember, there are all these forces which will come in. So there will be the skeptics who will say, oh, this is wrong, which is happening. We must fight it out. So there is this negotiation which happens. The globe is no longer a place of distant, different cultures. Transnational spaces have connected each other, challenges the core periphery model of the world system theory by giving a heterogeneous character to the globe. So the connectivity is there, and yet, say for example, cultural modes of production which were typically happening in India today could now happen in transnational communities outside and can be exported back into India. Cultural modes of production has grown, taking advantage of technology advances, globalized world. It is a society where social structure is made up of networks powered by microelectronics based information and communication technology. So the local is influencing the global, and the global is influencing the local. Facilitated fast movement of capital, people, which are indicators of globalization. Other things such as dual citizenship, transnational corporations, transnational criminal activities, ways of life, news coverage. I was seeing this channel, this Punjabi channel, which is run out of Canada, which was providing the news coverage on the election results of the Punjab election, the last Punjab elections, and they were doing a much better job and a much more critical job than some of the Indian channels that were doing the election coverage. So let's sum up. Transnational and globalization have often been used interchangeably, but in reality, they are two different terms that complement each other. Globalization emphasis on global against national or the local. Transnationalism removes the barriers by transnational connectivity, leading to closer integration of institutional economics and policies. So today, the state has not only to plan for the citizens, but it has also to plan for the transnationals, because the whatever is local is global, and whatever is global is local. So everything is influencing everything else. Is on one hand strengthens the local and the national by transnationalizing them. On the other hand, facilitates the process of globalization through easy movement of capital, people, and ideas. So if you are not careful, so for example, when the Indian government did not have a very clear policy on Web3 or the new AI or the crypto economy, people shifted businesses outside, because remember the fact, businesses will go wherever it is convenient for them to do business. Both the processes have transformed several established concepts and practices like nation state, citizenship, culture, and the concept of digital diaspora, where countries are now welcoming people of any nationality if they have a high paying job to come and work in their country, and they will give a visa. It's an absolutely new concept. So I was able to come across some academic articles connecting and confronting transnationalism, bridging concepts and moving critique. It's a full document which is available on the web. It's in again a Taylor and Francis magazine called Identities. This article can be downloaded. So it's an academic articles on how things are moving. Springer Nature has an article on transnationalism, current debates, and new perspectives. So whatever we talked about in this particular unit, or whatever is given in the SLM, is not, there are multiple more debates and discourses which are happening, because new scholars, and as things are moving, new scholars are coming across various other ways things can happen. Current debates and new perspectives. And I think this is a 2020 article in the Geo Journal. There are some other references and suggested readings: the transnational terms of migration studies. There is a global politics, and how politics is influencing the whole game. How are politics also changing? The way economics is done, how organizations are changing, and so on and so forth. Your SLM has further other material which you can read. Okay, I have come to the end. In case there is any question, let me put on my video. Hi guys. Gurpreet,
Sir,
Aisha, any question? Huh, Gurpreet?
sir, one question, please, from a historical point of view, sir.
Hmm.
Sir, in the last year and even today, you discussed about the Portuguese and Spain in the 15th century sailing for the world, and then Spain moved towards the Latin America, and Portuguese moves toward the South Africa and Indian Ocean.
Hmm.
So my question is, why sea routes dominate so much in the trade, whereas very limited land routes? We discussed the Silk Route. Spice.
The initial Silk Route was there. There was trade which was happening in the original Silk Route. Now, understand one thing: when nation states start getting formed to travel across nation state, and let's say an army has to travel, and remember there are mountains, and there are various obstacles to travel, then there are logistics to travel. Whereas again, need to understand, sea becomes it becomes nobody's territory. So these guys started with the sea route. And also remember, earliest trade besides the land, a large amount of trade happened on the sea routes. The earliest Arab traders which came into India and docked in Kerala, which made a connection between the Arabia and in the South India, used the sea routes.
Sir.
So sea routes was, see, remember again, the earliest you look at historically,
Sir.
people, when migration happened out of East Africa of modern human beings, they traveled the land route. But once they were able to create, ships or transportation on the water, these were much. Say, for example, if you have to come from, let's say, Arab world into South India, if you take the land route, you have to come over the mountains, over the Himalayas, and then travel the whole India. Whereas
Sir.
if you take the sea route, it's the smallest area.
Crow route, sir, bird route.
Similarly, when the Europeans traveled, they initially took the Cape of Good Hope.
Sir.
Subsequently, the Suez Canal was made, which cut all the routes.
Clear, sir. True.
So inevitably, remember the fact that human need, all technology follows human need. So when capital got formed, and there was enough for people to experiment, did the industrial revolution happen? At that same time, privatization was happening. At the same time, population was increasing. So people wanted to experiment to get how to feed this population. Now, when you are feeding so inevitably, technology keeps following the society's needs.
Very true, sir. But the colonial powers, how they entered, move inside the Africa. From France entered from the north, then Portugal from the west,
So again, you need to
British from the south.
so understand one thing. The way these guys, so initially they were the travelers who went about. So for example, when Columbus went about trying to find a route to India, initially the Europeans wanted spices. So it was
Sir.
the spice trade. So instead of coming to India, he found found America, which he called the Newfoundland, and he called them Indians.
Sir.
So these travelers were so please understand the basic curiosity of human beings to find new things and to document them. And then a lot of, if you look at this, a lot of innovation have happened militarily. Internet came out of a military experiment.
Sir.
So militarily, people, and across again historically, human beings have always wanted to gather more, get more. So that was how the colonization happened. These guys wanted to have more territories. They were looking at various ways where they could get spices, or they could get slaves, or they could get various things, and things moved.
True, sir. Nice, sir. Very nice. Cecil Rhodes and other explorers also plays important role.
Absolutely. So see, at the end of the day, all those travelers, the earliest of the travelers also documented. Once they were documenting things, the people who came after that looked at what was the those documents and what could be the advantages for them or their communities. So
Very nice, sir.
when the East India Company formed, or the Portuguese East India Company or the Dutch East India Company, they basically wanted the spice trade. Initially,
Sir.
it was the spice trade, but subsequently they looked at other things. See, inevitably, that's how humans and communities and states grow. You
True,
start
sir.
with one thing and then you look at other opportunities.
Very true, sir. Sir, Portuguese started the slave trade, then all colonial powers. Similarly, Britishers moved for the indentured labor, and then all other colonial powers.
Indentured labor, they moved once slavery was banned.
Sir.
Initially, they looked at the fact that there was this Africa was the dark continent. There was this dark continent, and remember, slavery was a done thing between various tribes of Africa. So when there was a war between two tribes, and the tribes which was able to defeat the other tribes, they would take the able-bodied men as slaves. When the Europeans came, they started selling these slaves to the Europeans. Then the Europeans got this idea to use these slaves in plantations. When the slavery got banned, indentured labor came in. And if you see today, the sweatshops are nothing but a slave shops which make cheap quality stuff for the branded material. So inevitably, the human society has gone through a circular route.
Very nice, sir. Very nice. Very clear.
Aisha.
Sir, one more request.
Please, please.
So, sir, little orientation about the second year, please. Yesterday, I got registered for the second year.
Okay.
The probably 8 courses plus 2 practical work.
Okay.
So, so
Gurpreet, what I suggest is offline, you can just send a message to Sada sir.
Okay. Sir.
Yeah. And and you can get that information from there.
Right, sir.
In this particular way, in this particular marathon classes that we have, we are going unit by unit. So for example,
Okay,
next Saturday I will take unit 3,
sir.
And tomorrow we are going to be doing in MDI 003, we will be doing unit 4. So if there is a specific query, you can tag a particular person and send a message to that person.
So kind, sir. So kind. Thank you so much, please.
Okay. So let's call it a day. Have a nice evening, and catch you tomorrow at 5 o'clock for MDI 003 Unit 24.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, guys. Bye. Bye.